Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition. That is Nick Suss. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and also Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Good to be back with you, Nick. Special thanks to JT for filling in last week for both shows. Do appreciate him. Make sure you check out the Hot Read podcast with him and Stoney Keeley every Tuesday and Friday right here on the 440 Sports Network. They're doing great stuff. Watching ball. They're not quite like full members of Geek Corner, but they're pretty close, right, Nick? How are you,
Yeah,
sir?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to the 70 to 80 slideshow you have for us of the family vacation. We're going to sit through that before we talk Titans at all.
What song is playing underneath that, do you think?
Time of Our Life by Green Day. Good riddance.
It's really funny you say that. I had what did I think I played so I had to choose one Green Day song. So my littlest daughter is more of a punk rocker.
Okay.
My oldest daughter is more T Swizzle and sort of like singer songwritery. And so I was like, what song? And I picked Welcome to Paradise to play for. It was the first ever time she'd heard Green Day, and so I'm not going to play one of those ballady Incubus type songs that got them all famous. I'm going to play like a real Green Day song. So is Welcome to Paradise the right one to play? Totally different question.
Probably. I mean, you can't play Longview for a little child.
You can. We don't play that Disney shit at my house.
I'm just saying that one, subject matter wise, might not be what you want to play.
Look, Nick, we played. I mean, they have heard Not Like Us as many times as every other American in 2024.
I knew all of the words to Paradise by the Dashboard Light when I was like 7. Kids don't know. You're right. But like, I don't know. I would still like maybe Welcome to Paradise.
That She's a really good one. She's really good. So she's way more of a punk rocker, which is really cool, and I'm enjoying that. Welcome to the Sus Zone, says D. Good. QC Hawk, good to see you. You have my attention for 60 minutes. NCAA wrestling and basketball tournaments will be my life. Wrestling, that's a new one. That's a new one, especially since the Predators will not have anyone's attention over the course of the next 15 games. Trevor, good to see you as well. If you want to get into the comments, please ask questions. We have a couple of different topics we're going to cover today as we do on the show. At the end, I want to ask you sort of, because the Titans cut Chidobe Awuzie and they cut a cornerback, I am going to ask you, that's going to be two different topics there, which is what does it tell us about this current administration, what they value, maybe what they thought of the previous administration. I think we kind of understand that. But also, cornerback might have been the number one best position on the roster going into the weekend. Is it still? Where are the strengths and weaknesses now that free agency is sort of settled and the dust is settled? How does that change our focus on the positions for the Titans moving forward into the last few weeks of draft preparation? I know you've got a geek corner for us as it pertains to history around telegraphing the first overall pick. Also, other rumors in the draft. What do we believe and what do we not believe at this time of year? It is must-lie season, and it's all smokescreen in my opinion. And I think it's way too obvious that the Tennessee Titans are just clearly going to pick Cam Ward. It's just obvious that they're picking Cam Ward at number one. And you sort of laid out in your story, Tennessean.com, go check it out, all the different ways that story is now creeping into our brains, be it gambling, be it mock drafts, be it, free agency, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get into all of that. Here's the one thing I'll say about the journey to Mexico. Number one, just so great to dip my toes in the Gulf of America. Really disappointed that both Apple and Alphabet, Google Maps, I got off the plane in Mexico. I immediately pulled up my maps to see if the people in Mexico, if those applications in Mexico are still calling it the Gulf of America. And sure enough, still the Gulf of America, even when you're standing in Mexico. So disappointed in that. Number two, all-inclusives, not my thing. Just not my thing. And this is why. The alcohol and the food is just not good enough for me. I'm bougie. I'm old. That I have priorities. I like good bourbon and I like a good meal. I'm older than you, and my wife and I, when we travel, we like to explore good booze, good food, good music, good culture about where we are. And that's not what an all-inclusive resort by an American company in Cancun, Mexico does for you. It's great for the kids, but I really missed my Sinkers Beverages and my Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Good local establishments serving good local quality products, serving the community to the best of their abilities. Nick, Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I was thinking about them the whole time while I was reading a Don Winslow Mexican cartel book on the beach.
Good. That is exactly what you should be thinking about. That is fantastic. I was not thinking about Mexican cartels last week. I was in the middle of all of this stuff that we've been talking about for the last 14 days. You picked a great week for a vacation. That's not sarcasm. That is like genuinely, I envy the fact that you were away from this.
No social media. I did not. We checked out. My wife and I are in the airport in Cancun coming back with the kids, and we were like spending some time finally looking at our phones again. And I did a little bit of work, not much. I had to do it for another project I'm working on. That was all the wife would allow. But we looked at our phones, and it was like 0 minutes of Instagram on either of our phones. And I don't use Instagram much anyway, so that's not a huge accomplishment for me. It's a big accomplishment for her. And then like 12 minutes of Twitter in like 7 days. Unfortunately, I did not see a single second of the SEC tournament, a record-breaking, most viewed, most attended, spectacular 4 of the top 6 teams in America, like one of the best tournaments we've ever had in this city. Didn't see a single second of it because we didn't use social media and I didn't turn on the TV. That part was pretty nice. So
I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Last week was the first time in my life I ever followed a single soul on Instagram. I pressed a button on Instagram for the first time in my life because of the you're aware that Twitter went down for the first 5 hours of free agency. Did you see that?
So that I did hear that Twitter busted out for a while. Was it planned or not planned? I have not yet got around to listening to Pivot with Scott Galloway and Garrett Swisher yet.
I can't imagine it was. I can't imagine it was tactical, but it seemed people were not aware it was about to happen. So I had to use Instagram for a terrible 5 hours of my life, and never
brutal,
going back.
Dude. Who was the follow?
just Schefter and Rappaport. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. How did you feel about it? Could you feel yourself being more judgmental of your body image when you got done with it?
No, it's just like the notification icon for Instagram is just so annoying to me. It's like, oh, now I got a square. There's just like a little square box that it's like, oh, press this square. I don't like this. It's bad.
Why are all these senators filming things vertically now? What's going on? I did just by the way, totally. This is why I like doing this show with you because I have no clue where the hell we're gonna go sometimes. I just purchased this book, Careless People, which is written by like the former director of like global policy for Meta. And it is terrifying. I just started it. Facebook is spending millions and millions of dollars to keep this Facebook, Instagram, same company, of course, trying to keep this book from being published. I got my hands on it, which you can just get on Jeff Bezos's website. Ironically. Anyway, just Instagram's terrifying. It's just, and I don't mean that as like an old man. I mean that as like I don't want my kids smoking cigarettes kind of way. Okay. All right. Jason, good to see you. D, good. Eddie, lots of good questions. Coach Will, good to see you all, you guys. Eddie says he finally got pushed to Blue Sky. Rap sheet had me covered. There you go. Blue Sky is very calm. The waters are very calm. The temperatures are very, mild. It's quite nice over there. The skies are blue and clear. Eddie says we all know that Graver thinks Ward is the perfect combo of Jesus and Fergie, but seriously, can they still trade out? That's where we're going to start here. Ed Henry, good to see you as well. I want to start with this, which is just, it can't be this easy, right? It can't. Paul and I talked about this on Monday. People are way too convinced that this is exactly what's happening, which is they sign Brandon Allen, the Titans do, which is not an answer. And as you put in your story, the third best Allen in the NFL over the last few years at quarterback. The betting odds have Cam Ward now way at the top of the list. And yes, Justin Graver is personally obsessed with Cam Ward. He may be right. The folks who love Cam Ward could be right about this. But doesn't it feel way too simple, way too perfect, way too easy, nice and tidy to say that the Titans are telegraphing what's going on with the number 1 pick here? I think trading out is still more likely than Cam Ward. I may be coming around on Cam Ward over other players at 1 if they stay there. But doesn't this seem way too simple and easy and nice and tidy for it to be true?
Why is that a bad thing? Like, why is it a bad thing if it's obvious? You have the first pick. Nobody was criticizing the Chicago Bears for telegraphing the fact that they were going to take Caleb Williams. Like, if it is being telegraphed, let's first say, who cares? Like, the Bryce Young thing was pretty telegraphed. There was some speculation leading in, oh, maybe it's Stroud, maybe it's Levis, but we all knew it was Bryce Young. Trayvon Walker, we all knew for weeks. Everyone was like, why isn't it Aiden Hutchinson? But we knew it was going to be Trayvon Walker. Joe Burrow was telegraphed. Like,
okay, there's one that might make sense.
I agree.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence was like, if you look at the number one pick, it is generally pretty obvious what's going to happen. Now, are the Titans in a completely different situation? Yes, but I do think that if you are talking about it from like they're telegraphing it, who can stop them? The only thing that's bad about telegraphing your pick is if somebody can stop you. So all they've done here is made it so if they pick Cam Ward, they're good with it. They have not removed their ability to trade it, but they seem to have given themselves more leverage because the league now respects, hey, Titans are happy taking this pick. That's going to make teams have to offer more. So if they're telegraphing it, I see that as a good thing. Now we're going to get into Geek Corner and we're going to talk about whether they're telegraphing it and all this stuff. I thought before the Combine it was more likely that they would trade it. Since the Combine, I have tended to think more likely that they're going to pick Cam Ward. I do not see a third option. You either trade the pick or you take Cam Ward number one. I don't see a world where it's Abdul Carter one or Travis Hunter one. That seems silly, especially if your main trade candidate is a team that you'll still be able to get one of those guys at 3. Yep. But I don't know. I think that let's not call it a bad thing. Oh, they're making it obvious. They have the number one pick. You could have told people on January 3rd we were picking them, and there's nothing the league could have done to stop you.
That is not necessarily. I completely agree with your point. I am not necessarily saying that the telegraphing is the bad thing. What I'm asking is it real? Is it true? Because if the rest of the league still, and this is not, I took some flack on Monday from some folks in the comments about like, why does this guy hate Cam Ward? I don't. My point on Monday, and I think the week before I went on vacation, was we don't know. Nobody knows. The people who you just rattled off a bunch of first picks, some of which were telegraphed more than others, and half of them aren't worthy of being the first pick. So my question isn't necessarily like even at the quarterback spot, and Paul and I have done this, and I know you've done this. Like you and I have done this. Everybody's done this. Over the last 15 years since the 2009 draft when Stafford went number one, look at the number one overall picks at quarterback. The majority of them were quote unquote pretty clear or clear cut in some way, shape, or form. And I would argue that 2 of them are bona fide, should have been, will be, are Hall of Famers. Andrew Luck retired early. Joe Burrow might be the other one. Then you've got a bunch of like Cam Newtons. Matt Stafford might be number 3. Kyler Murray's pretty good, won 1 playoff game. Baker Mayfield's pretty good, been on 4 teams. We've done this exercise. You mentioned Trayvon Walker. That wasn't the right pick over Aiden Hutchinson, in theory. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is kind of an incomplete because of the context of the situation. I agree with Rich. Cam Newton was worth the pick. My point is that
no, because Cam Newton's a perfect example here. Because Cam Newton was absolutely worth the pick, and then 5 of the next 10 picks after him were future Hall of Famers. So he was absolutely worth the pick. You got an MVP who took you to a Super Bowl. That was the right pick.
No question.
They could have picked Von Miller. They could have picked J.J. Watt. They could have picked Tyron Smith. They could have picked A.J. Green. They could have picked Julio Jones. They could have picked Patrick Peterson. That is 6 Hall of Famers who went between picks 2 and 11 in the 2011 draft. Cam Newton was absolutely the right pick, but the trade-off is you passed on 6 Hall of Famers. I'm not sitting here saying Abdul Carter is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm pretty low on Abdul Carter compared to most people who think of him as this 1-1 top prospect. I'm very high on Travis Hunter. I have not hidden the fact that I think Travis Hunter should be afforded the opportunity to try to play 100 snaps a game in the NFL and see what happens. But if you're talking about, look, is Cam Ward going to be a more valuable player than that? If he hits, absolutely. If he's as good as Cam Newton, absolutely. You would usually take a quarterback who's great for 4 years over a Hall of Fame defensive tackle or a Hall of Fame wide receiver. But you do have to weigh the cost benefit of, if Travis Hunter turns out to be the best, the Shohei Ohtani of football, you passed on him. You passed on him for a guy who historically picking a quarterback at number 1 is not that thing.
I think C. Rich says we had Derrick Henry, who's an easy Hall of Famer. That was, I mean, I don't know how that's relevant. It's a second round pick, but also Derrick Henry's not a clear cut Hall of Famer. I think he is personally.
I think he is, yeah.
But I think now that he's had another great season somewhere else, he's probably going to get there pretty easily. But the point is, and I agree with your point on Cam Newton. My thought on Monday was that I think he personally, and I think most scouts, and there was a comment about just now watching the tape and stuff for the first time. I think this was from, let me double check here. Jason says, I think it's just a byproduct of everyone breaking down Ward's tape for the first time. I think play to play, he's just much better than you expect. I don't not like Cam Ward. I think I'm getting the rap as like the anti-Cam Ward guy. My thought is to be cynical to some degree, but also practical and pragmatic, which is the truth is the guys who go number one are generally average to above average, with a couple of them. You mentioned, I think Stafford, Cam, Luck, and Burrow are the four that are clearly way above average and clearly worth the pick at number one. The other ones are varying degrees. The odds are he's Baker Mayfield. The odds are Cam Ward is Baker Mayfield, who is a solid NFL starting quarterback. He's been on 4 different teams, tough situation in Cleveland, better situation in Tampa, a little undersized. They have very similar personality traits in terms of their makeup mentally. They're both very competitive, fiery guys who sort of demand excellence from other people, athletic, like to throw it around a little bit of a gunslinger mentality. I think they're both, and if he's Baker Mayfield, I think it's probably worth the pick at number one. You got to make sure he stays here for 8 years instead of trading him to like 3 other teams. And I think the Titans and the Browns are probably more similar than Titans fans want to view themselves. But I think they've got a better brain trust in power now and in control. Ultimately, my question to start the show isn't about whether or not Cam Ward is the right pick or not. I don't think anyone in the comments, you, me, Paul Kaharski, or even the front office of the Titans knows what will happen if they draft Cam Ward. Because you can have a good idea, but you don't know. These guys get paid millions of dollars, and they still end up taking bad players in the top 5 all the time. And so my question is, what does the obvious telegraphing tell us? And I think your point on, and this is where we can go into Geek Corner here, is this actually their plan? Or is it just a smokescreen to drive up the cost, which is also a good plan?
Let's hit a little bit of a Wayne's World doodly doo doodly doo doodly doo. Let's time travel here back to 2016 for a second, because this is something that I think is super relevant to Geek Corner. You guys talked about this? Have we thought about the parallels of 2016 free agency to 2025 free agency? I don't want to repeat.
You're talking about Titans or
in
Titans or in general? Okay, this would have been John Robinson's first season, correct?
Yes, this is the year Marcus Mariota heading into his second season as a starter. Titans own the number 1 pick. John Robinson takes over as a new general manager. The Titans had 3 incredibly obvious needs heading into that offseason. They needed a second offensive tackle because time is a flat circle. They needed a wide receiver. And they needed
is that Rashard Matthews?
Yeah. Well, so 4 needs. They needed a wide receiver. They needed a second offensive tackle. They needed a pass rusher, and they needed a cornerback. Looking at the NFL draft, that was not a good receiver class. I want to say that was the Laquan Treadwell was the first receiver drafted year. It was not a great receiver draft. But at the other 3 positions, you had Laramie Tunsil, who was a projected top 5 pick. You had Joey Bosa, who was a projected top 5 pick. And you had Jalen Ramsey, a projected top 5 pick. All players that, hindsight, very good. In the moment, we thought very, very good. Titans had a bunch of money to spend in free agency, and they went out and got Bryce McCain. That was the big name they got at their positions of need. They didn't get a tackle. They didn't get a pass rusher. And at corner, they got a 30-year-old journeyman.
So let me see if I can I do this. I'm going to see if I can do this off the top of my head. Was Rashad Johnson a safety and Ben Jones the center? They ended up getting that draft class or that free agency class?
I know they got Ben Jones. I can't remember about the safety.
And Rashard Matthews, I think, were the 3 big ones.
Yeah, Rashard Matthews that year.
Okay. Right.
And I think they picked up a backup quarterback maybe to play with Mariota, but maybe Matt Castle that year. I can't recall. But so if we're talking about free agency moves telegraphing what you're going to do in the draft, this is a Titans team that clearly could have used help at pass rush, at tackle, and at
I see where you're going.
Everybody's like, oh, they just telegraphed the Tunsil pick. Like, you got the number 1 pick. You need a tackle massively. they didn't sign a tackle, so they're going to pick Tunsil, right? And then 3 weeks later, they trade the pick. So like this concept of your free agency moves telegraph what you're going to do in the draft isn't necessarily true. Now, we've talked at length about the trade in the 2016 draft and how that set the Titans up for all of the success they had in the early Vrabel era. How that trade allowed you to get Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard and then set up with Corey Davis and Adoree Jackson the next year, and how that trade really helped set up the roster. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. I think that when we talk about, oh, well, they didn't sign a quarterback, so clearly they're going to pick a quarterback. That hasn't necessarily been true historically.
Haven't signed a quarterback yet.
Yes. I will also say the contrast to this, which is a double geek corner. You can check
is this
out
unprecedented? Is this unprecedented double geek corner?
I don't know. Maybe it's the same geek corner. It's all one story. Tennessee.
Wouldn't there in
theory read my stuff?
Please read his stuff. Wouldn't in theory there be 4 geek corners in a room?
If it's my room, yes.
Okay.
But the other thing, I went through and I found a lot of articles from last year, from February of 2024, that were listing every NFL team's biggest need heading into free agency. 19 of the NFL's 32 teams addressed their biggest need in the first or second round of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not rocket science.
Like, teams that wait on their free agency need, or if you pick your free agency need in free agency, the Atlanta Falcons needed a quarterback and gave $150 million to Kirk Cousins. And then they used the 8th pick in the draft on a quarterback. The Chiefs had just won a Super Bowl and everybody agreed, oh, they need a wide receiver. They need receiver more than anything. And they go and get Hollywood Brown and sign him to a big contract. Then they use a first-round pick on Xavier Worthy. There are so many situations where teams sign their biggest need and then screw it, they draft it too. There are so many situations like the Titans last year who kicked the can on tackle because they knew they were going to do it in the first round of the draft. Generally speaking, in the NFL, your biggest need is the thing you pick in the first or second round of the NFL draft.
It's almost as if your draft and your free agent strategies need to work together to fill your roster almost. It's crazy.
So fundamentally, what we're talking about here is whether the Titans signed a quarterback or not, it was intuitive to think that they were going to draft a quarterback.
Bingo.
So did they telegraph the need? Yeah, because they don't have a quarterback. Like, they could have signed anybody. They still would have needed a quarterback for the future.
And it benefits them, to your original point, it benefits them significantly for everyone else in the world, including every member of the fan base and the media and every other front office, to think that they're taking Cam Ward number 1. Lots of comments here. I want to kind of work through a lot of these comments, see if we can get some time on. Let's see here. All right. So somebody said, let me see if I can find it here, because it was about the 2000. Jordan says, Nick, this 2016 comp is not fun. Here's what I would say, though. I thought that 2016 draft and free agency class is what set up the organization for that little run of success under both Mariota and under Tannehill. I mean, that draft class was all 3 all-pros. Mm-hmm. Conklin, Henry, and Kevin Byard, and those free agents. While we joke that Ben Jones, Rashad Johnson, Rashard Matthews weren't all that big of names, Ben Jones was an incredibly important piece. And actually, Rashard Matthews had a couple of good runs there, a couple of good seasons. I actually did a bunch of radio with Rashad Johnson. He was very nice, very smart player. Not a great football player, but a really smart broadcaster. The Titans have telegraphed for years, says C. Rich, and I actually don't disagree with that. And because when I was on 102.5, I remember I think I got like 4 first-round picks in a row predicted correctly, which seems impossible to do. But I got the Jeffrey Simmons pick, and I got the Corey Davis and the Adoree Jackson's picks correct basically when we were like on air making these selections. Rashaan Evans was the other one I think I got correct. Again, that was a bad one. That was a terrible pick. But I agree that they have not hidden their needs, to your point, since John Robinson took over with Robinson and now with Grant Carthon, those two GMs making decisions. It has been largely obvious and fairly predictable, to your point and to a lot of the commenters' points on this. I tend to agree with that. And then Ed says Doesn't the lack of edge signing signal that it could be the edge pick as well? That's all I'm saying. Joe says he's building a geek hotel. I agree. Continue the work there. I'm not sure what this means, Kenneth. Braden has to leave the PK bubble. If the pick looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, the pick is a duck. Bo Nix is not available in this draft class, guys.
Tyler
I don't know
Shuck.
what does that
Shuck
mean?
the
I'm
duck.
not. There you go. I'm not 100% sure what that means.
He's referring to the idea that it's telegraphed. Like, stop trying to cast doubt. It's going to be Cam Ward. I believe that is the opinion being expressed there.
Okay, but isn't the entire next 4 weeks of the calendar the time when telegraphs aren't true always? Like, isn't that the whole? I'm not saying that sometimes they are, and in the Titans case, as we've just proven, they can be. This is a new group of people making decisions, though.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the famous tweet of y'all be speaking to absolute. I don't know. Maybe it depends. Like, it's probably Cam Ward. Like, I have said it earlier this show, and I will say it again. It's probably Cam Ward, but I'm not going to speak in absolutes. I'm not going to make any guarantees here.
No, not at all. My only absolute is that you don't know what's the absolute. Joe says that's my point too. Expect the unexpected. See, Rich, because we don't have a quarterback. Yes, I agree with that. Let's see here. Okay, so I just wanted to get through some of those. And I actually, if you're stepping back from all the noise and all this conversation and going to your original analysis of sort of back to, and I know we've done this a million times, like what should they do? I do think I've meandered to this point, but I've gotten where you are, which is if you're picking a player one, Cam Ward makes the most sense. I think Abdul Carter is the best player for the team, but he makes way more sense at 3, or Michael Williams at 6 or 7. If Travis Hunter is the only generational talent in this draft class, I don't know what that means for where he should be selected.
Yeah.
And I think that's the smart, rational way to look at this. Is Cam Ward Baker Mayfield? Maybe. I nothing, and this is ultimately my point, like covering him in college, he's a super fun player to watch. I've loved covering him at Incarnate Word, Washington State, and at Miami.
So let's do this with Abdul Carter real quick before we make the transition, because I've been wanting to bring this up. Let's go one for one. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, so sorry if I get stuff wrong. Correct me in the comments. I'm going to list off the top edge rusher in every class for the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You tell me, would Abdul Carter be drafted above this guy? Last year it was Laiatu Latu. I think he's picked again above him.
Yeah. Yes. UCLA injury prone guy. Yeah. Colts. Yeah. Yeah.
Year before that was Will Anderson. No world in hell where he goes before Will Anderson.
Will Anderson, number 1.
Year before that was Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson. No world before he goes before Aiden Hutchinson. He might have gone before Walker, but definitely not Hutchinson in a rational draft where people are picking.
Agreed.
Year before that was Chase Young. Am I skipping a year?
You missed a year. So technically, does Micah Parsons count?
Yeah, and I don't think he should have or would have gone before Micah Parsons. Hindsight aside. He was picked
12th, and he was more of a linebacker, I think. But
and then year before that was Chase Young. He's not going before Chase Young. Year before that was Bosa.
I think he might be better than Chase Young, though.
He would not. Chase Young was such a stellar prospect.
He would not, to your point, he would not have gone before either Bosa or Young, but I think he is. I would not say he's a better prospect than Bosa. Yeah. I would say he's a better prospect than Young, if I had to, my own personal opinions. You're still going if you want to. You've gotten it right so far. 2018.
18 first edge rusher.
Gosh. Number 5 overall to the Broncos.
Bradley Chubb.
Better than Bradley. He would have gone. He
might have been on par. Might have been on par with Bradley Chubb. 17, no world in hell. He goes before Myles Garrett, obviously.
Duh.
16, was that Fowler?
DeForest Buckner. No, Joey Bosa at 3.
Joey Bosa. I don't think he goes before Joey Bosa.
I think he might. He's got a chance to be ahead of DeForest Buckner, but DeForest Buckner is a pretty damn good prospect and player. So
then 15 would have been Fowler, and then 14 would have been Clowney and Mack.
I think your point is
you go through the last 10 drafts. He is the number 1 edge rusher 3 out of 10 drafts.
Yeah, 30%.
Like, he is not. When we're talking about generational, he's part of a generation. And clearly he is not generational compared to his own generation. Yeah. He's a really good prospect who I think goes in the top 10 almost every year of these last 10 years. But if you're talking about, you can't afford to trade back because this guy's going to be there, there's going to be another guy like him next year. There's going to be another guy like him every year.
Yeah, I mean the kid out of Texas in 2 years is going to be a freak of nature. I can't. His name is escaping me right now.
And let's
Simmons,
not
maybe Simmons. I think is his
and
name.
let's wait and see what happens with a healthy Harold Perkins next year. If he's healthy and looks like he did at the beginning of his career, he's just a better version of what Abdul Carter looks like. I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy again.
He's
but
not
I really
the same. He plays a totally different position.
Yeah, so did Abdul Carter until this year.
Well, what I'm saying is like Harold Perkins is never going to be 6'4", 250. Like that's not. He's 6'2", 225. Fair. Like he's a totally different player. Is what I'm saying.
Fair.
But I think your point is valid. Like Abdul Carter. Ultimately, this is what I started and I was thinking about like some of the things I think I've been wrong about or my opinions that have changed, which I think is a sign of progress, maturity, and growth, not a sign of like being bad at your job in this industry. I said from the very beginning, the only generational talent that's worthy of the number one pick in this draft class is Travis Hunter.
Agreed.
Full stop. And while I don't feel that, while there's some context and some nuance in that take now, with the Titans being number one and with them having their needs and after free agency and et cetera, I think there's more nuance there. I still don't think there's any difference between Travis Hunter being the best player in the draft at football, writ large, and maybe that not being the right thing to do with the one pick or the right thing to do for the Titans. That's all nuance that makes it more difficult. I am coming around because let me. Some of the folks that maybe have misconstrued my personal opinions about Cam Ward. I want the Titans to take Cam Ward. That is good for my business. If you want me to be purely cynical and purely just self-serving and self-interested and selfish in this, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders would be the top two picks in my personal goals for my business and for content. Travis Hunter would be number 3 because he would be great for content. So it's not about
Quinn Ewers for.
Actually, Jackson Dart would be Jackson Dart 3 overall, which actually is kind of Bo Nix. Interestingly enough, what I think if I am a fan of the team, because what we're getting at here ultimately is the same thing we started this entire draft process analysis with. This isn't a very good draft class. It's not a great draft class to have the number 1 pick. It's not a great draft class to have the number 6 pick. It's not a great draft class. So ultimately, how do you make your team better long term? And the depth and the quality of this draft class, where there's going to be a lot of starting players, as we have alluded to from the beginning, is basically pick 25 to 100. And if you can get as many picks between 25 and 100, you probably make your team better, more better. And so that is why moving to 3 or 6 or 7 seems like the smartest strategy. It doesn't mean that you should pass on Cam Ward. That's up to the Titans to decide, not for Justin Graver, not for me, not for Kaharski, not for the people in the comment section. We all have our own guesses at this, but ultimately the thing that always sticks with me is these folks get paid millions of dollars and they guess all the time. It's informed, it's researched, we had time to sit down with him and look him in the eyes. It doesn't mean you're going to get it right.
Let's take the break that I know you need to take, and then let's segue this into the pass rusher stuff that we said we're going to talk about, because I think this is a good segue point.
That was not what we just talked about? Sinkers, Beverages.
The second round. Yeah.
Sinkers, Beverages, and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Make sure you check out both those great, good local business establishments. Here's the deal on Sinkers Beverages. If you like bourbon, which I do, I don't drink as much anymore, but I still love a nice sip of brown water that's neat at the end of the night, and I am a bougie, old middle-aged man now who wants something good. And I love the allocations that they have access to because they're one of the top distributors of the best bourbons in the Southeast. So they get really good access to different distilleries and different types of bottles, different barrel picks than most liquor stores don't get. It's why they're a 4-time Liquor Store of the Year champion, Nick Suss. I don't know if you knew that, but thanks for asking. What I think is interesting is that you can go on if you sign up for the in-crowd, not only do you get access to those barrel picks, you also have access to going on the actual selection process. They sent me an email a couple of months ago, and they're like, hey, we're going to go bring some of our local customers. We're going to go check out, I think it was, what's the place called right there on Southern. Somebody's going to remind me in the comments of what this place is called. Right there on like 2nd and 4th Avenue when you get off the interstate right there in south of Broadway. I'm not going to call it what they want me to call it. But you can go in there and they're like, hey, we're going to try like 8 or 9 or 10 of these bourbons and make our barrel pick. And you got to go on the trip with the liquor store. They'll take you on the barrel pick. So you get to go try a bunch of free bourbon. It's great. So this is one of the small things they do. They've got all kinds of 40th anniversary celebrations coming up because they're turning 40 this year, serving the community. So go check them out. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I missed you while I was in Mexico because I was eating cruise ship food the entire time. It was brutal. My kids loved it. I did not, but they're very happy. So I'm happy. But I'm also very happy to be eating Shotgun Willie's Barbecue again. Local businesses here, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, just 10 minutes from downtown, the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers.
I love the idea of you walking around a cruise ship asking employees who are trying to go on with their day, do you have the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers by chance? I'm really craving it. I just need the official barbecue of the defunct Houston Oilers, please.
Hold up the plate in the buffet line.
Please.
Kenneth says, the flaw in Braden's argument is that if Cam Ward is truly a franchise quarterback, his play will elevate those around him and cover up the flaws on the team till you have time to improve them. Let me ask you this, Nick.
Yeah.
What is the percent chance, based on Geek Corner information and history, what is the percent chance that Cam Ward is Joe Burrow?
Oh. I would say you are in the 10 to 20% range.
Oh, that's more than I expected. Okay.
I would say that 1 in 7 to 10, maybe 1 in 5 to 7 quarterbacks that go number 1 overall end up justifiably being a transformational player. We've been through this. We don't need to repeat it. The last quarterback who was picked number 1 overall to win a Super Bowl was Matthew Stafford. The last quarterback picked number 1 overall to win a Super Bowl for the team that he began his career with was Eli Manning. The last quarterback picked number 1 overall to win a Super Bowl for the team that drafted him was Peyton Manning. It has been a very long time. And if we are judging this purely based off of the concept of all that matters is winning a Super Bowl, about 1 in 5, 1 in 6 quarterbacks who go number 1 overall are good enough to compete for that. I believe Burrow was the last one to take somebody to a Super Bowl. Cam before him.
Cam, yep. Andrew Luck would have.
So yeah, 1 in 5 to 1 in 10, somewhere around there.
What I'm hearing
good enough.
What I'm hearing is statistically, you just made the case for drafting a Manning at number 1.
Yeah, I think that
which they might be able to do next year.
Historically speaking, drafting a Manning number 1 overall tends to be a good strategy. I don't know. I think that the whole predication of this argument is the FOMO argument of you don't want to not pick Cam Ward and he ends up being great. Like you don't want to not pick Cam Ward, which fair, but that's just how human nature works. Like the best player in the draft is seldom the first player picked. Like we can go through the number 1 pick in just about every draft. Miles Garrett might be the single best prospect I have seen in the last 20 years. Miles Garrett was an unimpeachably good prospect, and he hit, and he is the richest man in Cleveland, and all of these things, and he still wasn't the best player in his draft. Patrick Mahomes was picked 10 picks later or whatever it was. Like
Andrew Luck is the best prospect I've seen go number 1. Andrew Luck, clear cut for me.
I would have had Garrett and Clowney as better prospects than Luck, but that is not a slight against Andrew Luck.
And this comes from my time working at Rivals. Andrew Luck is the best high school prospect I've ever seen.
Okay.
Professionally. I've been told Ed Reed and Adrian Peterson probably would be in that top list. Guys that were just clear, far and away the best players. But Andrew Luck's the best high school prospect. I think he was like number 45 in the nation or something like that coming out of high school. He's the best NFL prospect. He's John Elway is what he was to me. But again, we're off topic here. So
quick, best high school football player you've ever seen in person. Go.
I think we already did. Did we do this a couple of?
Did we do this? I don't know. Just I like talking about stuff.
Yeah. What's your name? Isn't it like some guy for?
I've seen Trevor Lawrence play high school football, and I've seen Cam Hayward play high school football. Hayward was the one that just blew me away, but nevertheless,
he was dominant. I'm trying to think like in person. Like I didn't go to watch a lot of games. We did a lot of scouting. lot of spring practice and stuff. But Andrew Luck's the best prospect I ever covered when I was working at a recruiting service. Okay. All right. So you want to talk defensive ends, and this is somewhat tied to lying season. It's somewhat tied to your positions of need. It's somewhat tied to other positions of need that seem to be dropping in the rankings or moving up in the rankings, which, again, reminder, is not necessarily NFL teams moving players up and down boards. It's the media catching on to where these players are already mostly viewed by the league. All right. What's your theory here? Let's lay it out for the folks first.
I'm going to lay it out as a question for the comments here. I can only imagine there's like 30 to 40,000 people watching right now. So if anybody's watching in the comments here, what's the Titans' second biggest need right now? Wide receiver or pass rusher? Because
you're saying behind quarterback?
If quarterback's the biggest need, if we're all sitting here saying quarterback is the number one need, you have that, you pick quarterback first. Are you picking a pass rusher or are you picking a wide receiver second?
Pass rush by far the bigger need.
And then everybody and all of the lying season, to use your parlance, is pointing towards, well, if there's a receiver there, you got to pick the receiver. And so what's better? What's more important? Is it surrounding Cam Ward with assets so that he can thrive and not be set up to fail year one? Or is it strengthening the team overall? Because this is a really important conversation we need to be having that I think is going a little bit understated. If you draft the edge, you make the team better. If you draft the wide receiver, you set the quarterback you picked up to potentially thrive a little bit more. And I know it's edge one versus wide receiver two. I have been on the record for years saying that this team's biggest need is pass rusher. I would have picked pass rusher 2 over Skoronski that year. They needed him over, not over Latham. They needed a tackle so badly last year.
Well,
but like
Kaharski has done this exercise where it's like the last. They do not use draft assets to invest in pass rush.
Harold Landry was the last day 1 or 2 pick they drafted. I've talked about that with Paul before. It's a question of what is the plan? What are we expecting the Titans to do? Is this draft going to be about making the team better or about setting up the guy you picked to be the franchise quarterback to be the franchise quarterback? Okay. And I think that is an important question that needs to be asked.
So I agree with your point and the commenter's point that A, edge is more important than receiver, that B, edge makes the team better as a whole and receiver helps the quarterback. I agree with all of that. I think in this particular draft class and in drafts in general, it's far easier to find a starting wide receiver in the 3rd round than an edge player. And if you're trading back at 35, we'll have to. I'm like pulling up the big boards right now, but there are a lot more interesting edge pieces available at 35 than there are receivers, unless some of these receivers are falling. Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, if they're available at 35, then I might change my opinion. It's all about playing your board horizontally and vertically. Mm-hmm. If you told me you can get Jack Besh or Jalen Noel, I do not want Xavier Restrepo. I think somebody earlier in the comments asked about pairing up the quarterback with his college target. There's no Jamar Chase at Miami. Okay. There's not one of those guys. And so while I think Arroyo in the 5th or 6th round might be interesting because this Titans staff has talked openly about how they value the tight end class. That's very talented here. Same with running backs. I think the receiving options in the 3rd round, if you trade back in the 2nd and you get the edge in the 2nd and the way they could have gotten, Tavondre Sweat or Braden Fisk last year, but at the edge position, let's say, and they trade back a couple of spots, pick up a 3rd round pick, draft a receiver in the 3rd, I think you can do both. I think you can do both because the receiver position is so much easier to find later in the draft.
Sure. My thing is, what is the plan? What is the goal for 2025? Is the goal to build a team that can win now? Or is the goal to build a team that can be competitive on a 2 to 3 year plan? I don't know. I think that if Cam Ward was Joe Burrow or was Jaden Daniels, a prospect who was generally thought of as in that upper tier quarterback prospects. And the comments are like, well, Jaden Daniels didn't have a number 2. Well, Joe Burrow didn't have a number 2. Joe Burrow did have AJ Green. Like, I'm pretty sure AJ Green was still on that roster. He had a pretty solid number 2, and Jaden Daniels did not have a number 2. You're right about that. But Cam Ward doesn't have Jaden Daniels' dynamic run skills. He's a capable runner. He's not Jaden Daniels.
Well, you guys said Jaden Daniels in college didn't have a number 2?
No, in his rookie year.
Rookie year, yeah, behind McLaurin, yeah.
And so behind McLaurin, they didn't really have one. And so you're talking about a guy who, well, Jaden came in and thrived, and Burrow came in and thrived. Yeah, they were considered significantly better prospects than Cam Ward is right now. So if you're trying to insulate the quarterback, it's one thing to say, oh, we'll get Joe Burrow another receiver next year. Or, oh, we'll get Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, they went and got 4 receivers for it. And that was what they did. That was their plan.
Sort of like four half receivers gives you 2 full receivers, or one DJ Moore and a couple of half Keenan Allens or whatever. So.
Yeah, and so Jaden was also considered a better prospect. It's like we're comparing Cam to prospects who we put this to bed a month ago when Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah and all these people were saying, oh, Cam Ward would have been my quarterback 5 last year.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he's better than that. Maybe we're not giving him enough credit.
I think he's QB4.
But if we're putting him in the context of, well, Joe Burrow didn't need one, and well, Jaden Daniels didn't need one. Well, do we honestly think he's that guy? I think most informed people who are talking about this don't necessarily believe that Cam is in that same caliber as those guys coming out as a prospect. And if he's not, is it better to insulate him and just make sure that the offense can function than it is to try and improve your actual biggest weakness? I am just kind of talking into a void now of presenting. Maybe this is the smart thing to do, is just focus on you're drafting Cam. Now go get players to help Cam.
Well, in that case, you're going to draft a tight end. You're going to draft a running back. You're going to draft. So I think your point is valid, and especially if you're going to invest in an offensive coach the way they're investing in Brian Callahan. And frankly, right now, the strength of the team, and we're not going to have as much time to get to this, so we'll push this off till next week. When you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the team, the interior defensive line and the secondary is pretty solid right now. Even without Chidobe Awuzie and without Kenneth Murray, they went and got Barton. They went and got Woods. They've got 3 starting corners. They've got 4 defensive linemen right now. While they may not have a bona fide pass rusher, you got Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day, Simmons, and Jones up front. Like, they are stronger on defense in theory. They were better last year on defense than they were on offense. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. This is the ultimate point here, and I think C. Rich said this, which is it even the right year, the right draft to get a receiver in the second? And other than Trey Harris, maybe, who I think doesn't necessarily fit the offense with Ridley on the outside. I mean, I'm looking at these edges. I don't love Landon Jackson. So admittedly, that's a bad argument to start this with, but he's going to be probably available there. Nick Scorton is right now top of the second round. JTT, Jack Sawyer, the Swinson kid out of LSU, Jordan Birch, Josiah Stewart, Princely,
Uman Mielen.
He might be available as well. All guys that are sort of in that second round grade. Then you get to Elik Ayomanor out of Stanford, who I really like as a receiver that's not getting enough conversation. And that Jalen Noel is in this area right here. Trey Harris is in this area. Jack Besh is in this area. Jalen Royals at Utah State's in this area. Jaden Higgins, I'm not sold on Jaden Higgins yet. I know he's a big, tall guy. I think he's NWI, and I don't think that's worth a second-round pick. But if you're telling me you trade back from 35 to 40, take your edge player there. You better believe in him. And if Harold Landry, that's about where they got Harold Landry. If you get Harold Landry, that's making your team much better on his first contract. Then you can come back in the third round with your extra capital, and you can go Jack Best, Jalen Noel, whoever's available there. And I think you have done both. You have made your team better, and you have given another weapon a very look. A top 100 pick is a largely premium pick that needs to play regularly, which has been the problem with the Titans drafts the last 10 years. Is that too many second and third round picks haven't been contributing. So I think you can do both in this draft class, but I don't think 35 is the spot you draft a receiver, except if you tell me that Emeka Ibuka, who I think is a perfect piece for Cam Ward, or Luther Burden, who I think is a perfect piece for Cam Ward, if those 2 guys are available at 35, I don't think about it. I'm taking one of those 2.
Sure. We can go round for round. I would rather have the edge rushers in the 4th round than the receivers in the 4th round. I would rather have the edge rushers in the 5th round than the receivers in the 5th round.
Really?
I do not like the depth of receiver in this class.
Okay.
So if the question is, when do you pick the receiver? Just pick the best one. Like, if you can get Ashton Jalott in the 4th round, that's a hyper-productive all ACC caliber pass rusher he's not Abdul Carter, but you're going to get him in the 4th round, and he's probably going to be a 6-7 sack guy as a future edge rusher 2, and then you get the edge rusher 1 next year.
I think the hit rate on edges, and you're right, there's a difference between historical data geek corner context and this class. You don't find a lot of dominant starting pass rushers in the 3rd and 4th round. You find a lot of bona fide Pro Bowl-ish productive starting wide receivers in the 3rd and 4th round.
So. No, of course not. But if the question is, are you drafting an edge rusher to be your number 1 in the 2nd round, or are you drafting an edge rusher to be your number 2 in the future in the 2nd round? Is this you draft T. Higgins so you can get Jamar Chase next year situation, but for edge rusher? At that point, I'm like, yeah, go get somebody in the 4th round. He'll replace Arden Key. Like, you'll have a bad pass rush this year, and then next year you'll go get the guy in the 1st round. That's all obviously dependent on the guy being available and them having the right picks and all that stuff. But if that is the plan of the transition this year is bet on Cam Ward, I would feel better about you're betting on the quarterback, go give him every opportunity to succeed, especially with what you've done in free agency with the offensive line. You are clearly catering toward making life comfortable for whoever your quarterback is. So make it more comfortable. Go get your receiver early.
The logic behind that thinking is very sound. There's no question. And Kenneth says Stoney is bullish on Jalen Noel. You want to know where he got that from? Nick, who was the most excited about Jalen Noel? I tweeted at Zach Lyons, former host of this show, on Championship Saturday when Iowa State was playing in the championship game. And I said, I tweeted at Stoney and I tweeted at Zach. There's truth. There's receipts. You can go check. I said, boys, watch Iowa State's receivers, definitely Jalen Noel. I have been high on this guy since November. He is thick with 2 C's. He can play every position for being short. He's productive. He's fast. He's strong. He's everything you want next to Calvin Ridley. Anyway, I think the logic is sound on both strategies. Make the team better with a quality draft at 35. Okay, I like it.
Because people who listen probably pretty clearly know my opinion is edge rusher is the quarterback of defense. It's the most important thing. You need it. You very, very clearly need it. But the goal of this draft, if you're picking a quarterback 1, especially a quarterback who wouldn't go 1 most years,
that's true.
Insulate him.
I think you could argue edge and corner have now become that, even though the actual quarterbacks of the defense are middle linebackers and safeties. But I agree with your point that edge is the most valuable commodity. And again, you've said this, I've said this for years. You just look at the pay scale in the league. Number 1 is quarterback. Number 2 is left tackle. Number 3 is pass rusher. Then you go to the next 2 people who attack the passing football, which is receiver and corner. And I
think that, again, I could be wrong, but I think that the top of the market for receiver and edge has surpassed left tackle.
Is it really?
Not just the top guys, but like the 10th guy and the 12th guy. Like, I think on average, your top receivers and pass rushers are going to make more than left tackles these days.
And here's what's interesting about, I think there's something about I don't want to say Q rating, but the branding of a receiver, right? Because it's fantasy, it's gambling, it's out there in space. They touch the football. They're more well-known commodities. Edge rushers as well, same kind of thing. So I think there's a little bit of that. But I think ultimately it's all the people that affect passing the football.
You want to talk about speaking of Q rating, since we're running out of time, you want to talk about how I believe neither of us made that best Titans media member bracket? We got to get our Q ratings up, man.
Actually, I think that's like 6 years in a row. Like, I've covered the team since 2016, and I don't think I've ever been on there, and it's never once occurred to me to talk about it.
No, it just popped into my head. I was like, oh, that'd be a funny thing to bring up since you said Q rating. I don't care. Clearly, it is not a thing that bothers me. But
I think it's like top 64 Twitter accounts is what I think it is.
We don't tweet. We're old.
You and I don't tweet.
We're old.
Well, no, I would say intelligent, but whatever. That's here. Okay, so yes, Suss was absolutely shafted in that poll. Thanks for backing me up there, Eddie. I do appreciate it.
I said both. I think Braden should be on there. If it was best blue sky accounts, you'd be up near the top.
I don't know. I haven't blue sky. I haven't skeeted in a while either. So I like not being on social media. It's quite nice fun. It's so quite nice. I like to have real human interactions. Go figure. All right, so quickly here, Chidobe Awuzie cut, which is a huge dead cap hit with $12 million in dead cap hit. They get rid of Murray for a small price, but they get actually upgrade their draft pick there, and then they go sign Cody Barton, of course. So I'm just curious if you think the obvious readout on those two moves is correcting two of the biggest free agent mistakes from Rand Carthon's era last year, decision-making last year. Is that the right way to read it, or is it there's more to it? Awuzie maybe fell off a cliff faster, the injuries, Murray got hurt as well. They had a chance to upgrade their draft pick. And like Murray wasn't exactly the biggest investment financially last year anyway. Awuzie kind of was, but again, is that the right readout of those moves, is just correcting and indicting some of the maneuvers last summer?
I don't know.
Last spring.
I can only speak to what I've heard. And the stuff I've heard about like correcting roster stuff was less about correcting Carthon era and more about, moving on from the previous era before that with Vrabel guys. And not in like it's damning kind of way, but more just you look
time.
At the NWIs and the Stonehouses and guys who had only ever known it that way. I don't know. I think that Cheeto, it is purely a dude was going to be your number 4 corner. And are we sure he was better than Daryl Baker at number 4 right now? He's coming off of back-to-back injury years or 2 out of 3 injury years. He's inconsistent his entire career. It's just one stat. I'm not saying you should base everything off of it, but if you go and look at his passer rating against on Pro Football Focus, I don't believe he's had back-to-back years where the number was within 30 points of each other. Just wildly up and down his entire career, at least since getting to Cincinnati. His Dallas stuff might have been a little bit more consistent early on, but I think that was just a logic of you're paying a lot of money for a guy who wasn't going to surpass Snead, Brownlee, or McCreary on the depth chart. Murray, that might be a course correction. That might be a valuation of if you can move up 50 draft picks, do it. Of you can get inside linebacker. It's not a particularly valuable position. So if you can get value out of the least valuable position on the defense, go do it. I think they're really betting on Cedric Gray or James Williams or Otis Reese being somebody like that. I really like Jay Higgins out of Iowa. If you want just like a productive thumper in the middle to just be like, he's a guy who's going to have 140 tackles. Downhill.
Yeah.
You can probably get that guy in the 5th or 6th round and just have him be Jack Gibbons too. But I don't know. I think that those two moves to me don't necessarily feel as much like an indictment on Rand's decision-making as they do. In Cheeto's case, you didn't need him. And in Murray's case, you had the ability to go get some value out of it. So I'm not punching down at Rand or his decisions. Some of the decisions were not good. You probably shouldn't have given Cheeto that much money in the first place. But I think that's more
not our money.
It's more about hitting. Give Rand credit for finding Brownlee if he's the one who did it.
Yeah, no question.
Probably a team effort. It was probably a team effort. It's more about Brownlee than Cheeto to me.
I think that's right. That it's about turning the page, no matter who they're turning the page on, whether it's players, whether it's. I mean, the Stonehouse thing was alarming. It was like actually of all the things that I came back to after actually turning on social media and seeing all the moves, I was kind of like, really? I mean, I get it. He got hurt, but like, and the directional stuff never really worked, and he had too much hang time. But like, too much hang time is a problem. Anyway, I just think that was interesting. But it feels more like we just need to continue the restart, refresh, rebuild thing, and that includes Robinson, that includes Vrabel, that includes Carthon, that includes special teams, scout teams, starters. We just need to continue turning the page, and that's sort of how I read it as well. The Kenneth Murray thing, I think, means absolutely nothing other than you can replace the player, you can find that position for cheaper, and you can improve your draft stock. I got no problem with that move at all. The Awuzie thing is disappointing, but again, it's just free agent money. It's not It's not our money. It's not the fans' money. You know,
It was an overpay in the moment, but it was an ability to get a guy in who knew the Bengals culture, who could relate with Callahan, all that stuff. Like it made sense.
yeah, yeah.
But it was they found somebody better.
And honestly, they believe in Brownlee, so that's what they're doing. They're going to plug him in there, and they've got 3 corners with McCreary in the slot for now, at least.
And I like Daryl Baker.
See.
I'm not.
We'll see.
I'm not saying I don't.
One of the names that I think I'm going to spend some more time digging on, both on the college level and the pro level over the course of the next few weeks, is, and I don't think we're giving this player enough conversation, both last year and both in the draft process, and that is Cedric Gray. I think he is a really fascinating player, both on how they acquired him, the decision-making to draft him, the pressure they put on him, and then how last season unfolded. I think he's got a ton of ability, but they clearly I don't think they got the thing they thought they were getting, if that makes sense.
Not yet. Definitely not yet. I want to see him play good football before I make any judgments on whether or not he can play good football. I want to see him out at training camp. I want to see him out during OTAs. I want to see him moving around.
But James Williams has a ton of talent, so we'll see.
Ton of talent.
Wooddale says, why dude on the right looks like he's hiding in someone's basement? You're hiding in your own attic, right? Isn't that your attic?
No. Why do I look like I'm hiding someone in my basement? Is what they're asking.
I got to read.
And I am preferring to believe that question is in the positive light of, he's harboring fugitives. He's helping people out. He's
You've got Anne Frank in the basement.
People who are on the run from the law. I'm being helpful. I'm being so communicative. And that is what I'm preferring to read that comment as. Because the alternative is for me to say, Wooddale, do not worry. I do not have a basement.
Do you have a bag of fingernails in your closet?
No, I threw that away.
That's creepy. That's creepy.
But
the Underground Titans Railroad is Nick Suss is just hiding beleaguered Titans fans in his basement, keeping them from Twitter.
Guys, come on in. I'll show you this episode of SNL from '93. It didn't age well. Let's do this.
I'll save you. I have pilots. Well, I'll save you. We've got all kinds of episodes to show you. I'll save you.
In a literal and figurative sense. I also have a friend who's a pilot. I can fly. He can take you somewhere.
By the way, like you look more fashionable today than you normally look. So I don't know why he's taking shots at you, man. I don't understand that.
It's probably because of this.
Well, now you look like you have a human in your basement.
It's probably because of that. I got a haircut last week. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't take. It
just grows back that fast. Anyway,
yeah.
Buffalo Bill Suss luring big boned women into his van. That's disgusting. Great movie though, Jason. Great movie.
Little too far, but appreciate the joke.
Puts the lotion in the basket.
Okay. This is where we're ending, right? We're just ending.
I think we're done.
Topic. We'll pick up next week talking about what I look like to you people and whether or not you think I'm harboring fugitives or kidnapping people. I'm doing neither. No, I do not like the way I look with a mustache. Respect to people who do have mustaches. Wife has been pushing me to do it for years. I hate it. I really, really don't like the mustache look. But thank you for the recommendation.
The wife has been pushing you to do this, and you decided against that? That is bold strategy, guys.
I've tried it. It does not look right for me.
Do you have to be a certain age to wear a mustache? Or
no, I think it's more of like I don't like people looking at me and thinking, oh, he's trying. He did that on purpose. Oh man, there is a tactic to this.
Thank you, D. Good. So I did this. Now, what I've been told, I look like, everyone says I'm Sturgill Simpson is what I look like with the mustache. But I did this like last April for no reason at all, other than it was hot and I was tired of because I had a beard for like 10 years. My kids had not seen my face. She's 8 years old. She'd never seen my face. And so it's not that it's not full, D. Good, or maybe you're talking about Nick. It's that it's blonde. It's quite full, actually. It's real and distinguished. But my wife loves it. I shaved my beard and left the mustache as a joke one day because I was hot, and she was like, I love it, keep it. So now I'm going to keep it because she's more attracted to me. And that's the end of that discussion. Like, there's nothing any of you can say that's more important than how my wife is attracted to me.
Let's see. I had one for a brief period last summer. I'm trying to pull up a picture so you guys can judge and vote in the comments. But if I can't find it, I can't find it. It's bad.
John, you just keep working. John says, I got a question. What rank is Cam Ward among AFC quarterbacks? Second or third?
That's no.
He's better than Josh Allen, but not quite as good as Patrick Mahomes.
I don't like it.
It's not terrible, though.
It's not terrible, but I don't like it.
She likes it? The wife likes it?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I like it.
Doesn't work for me. I just, again, not a huge fan of the look for myself, but I'm sure some people like. I'm not anti other people having mustaches. I'm just anti myself having a mustache.
Oh God, says D Good. Would love to see the face of the person that just started watching the show from Josh. That's good. Eddie says pretty great. So we have conflicting reports in the comment section about your mustache. So
was from Mindhunter.
Greatest show never to make it to season 3 in television history, Mindhunter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I have takes that can get you pissed off.
No. I'm just trying to think of what the answer is, and it's Freaks and Geeks, but I'm trying to think of what the next answer is.
So it's number 2 might be Mindhunter. Thanks for giving me a pat on the head there. I appreciate it. All right.
Big Freaks and Geeks guy. There's 18 episodes of Freaks and Geeks that exist, and I have a 12-disc DVD box set. I don't know why I need so many. There's 18 total episodes. Why are there 12 discs? It's so many discs, and it's so worth it.
You know you can get them all on the internet.
Yeah. Right? Physical media, man.
Physical media. You sound like my 70-year-old father.
I've got every...
it's coming back. I got these, what are these metal Blu-ray DVD things that are now back in these high definition things or whatever. I don't know what they are called. He's like, oh, it's physical media, Braden. It's coming back. I'm like, yes, for music. I listen to vinyl because it sounds better.
Oh, it doesn't. Vinyl sounds like crap, but DVDs are fun as hell. I love DVDs.
All right, got to go. That's the worst take you have ever had on this show, and I appreciate that you
New vinyl sounds bad. Old vinyl sounds great.
That is such a nuanced take. I don't understand. You're just wrong. Just
all right. Press end. We're done.
Sinkers, Beverages, and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, Tennessean.com, and all the other great shows who are orally servicing Cam Ward on the network. Please hang out. Have a great weekend, everybody. For Nick, I'm Braden. We'll talk to you next time.